remember the first time I saw the Colosseum in Rome, and I thought, it's not finished. Anyway, bad joke. Interesting that Katie said her best part of the course is going to be the finish line. It's a great answer. But she seemed pretty chatty, pretty jokey. I mean, I guess she would be when her husband's asking the questions, but even so, she looks pretty relaxed and chilled.
Yeah, I think in general a lot of these athletes are just very relaxed and chilled out about things. There's no Olympic Games this year, so the pressure's off a little bit. A lot of them have come here just to relax and enjoy racing again.
You can see the protocols. They wear the masks until pretty much the last minute. Just when they walk out onto the pontoon is when they dispense with those masks. All the officials, as you see there on the left-hand side, will keep them on throughout. Let's have a little look, shall we, at the start list, because as mentioned, it is just studded with superstars. Katie, we've mentioned Georgia Taylor-Bраун. If you didn't see her World Championship victory last weekend, you missed just a fabulous performance from start to finish.
It was effortless. Georgia just ran such a super race. Her 5K run was just second to none. And to be honest, it's a long time coming. Anyone that knows Georgia Taylor-Bраун knows that she is definitely capable of winning a world championship. And
Jessica Lermont, again, we know we're going to get a superb swim from Jess. It's about bike and run. She's had so many podiums on the WTS, never won one. Hopefully it's a matter of when rather than if.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's definitely it's something to look forward to, I think, for Jess. She's got it in the bag, and like her run in Lausanne last year was phenomenal. She had like one of the quickest runs, so we know that her running's always improving every single year.
And Flora Даффи, I think, is going to be fascinating to watch the double world champion race today. She had a decent performance last week. I mean, say second decent, but by her very high standards, I think this course and this distance will suit her better.
Yeah, for sure. Flora definitely suits like strong courses. I mean, well, she suits any courses really. Yeah. But yeah, a hard bite, a tough run. This could be Flora's day.
Natalie Vancouver, the number 11, the only Australian in the race. Basically, she's based herself in Germany. That's why she's able to race. No other Aussies are here. Looking a little bit further down, Елистратова, we've seen her so many times. The Ukrainian. Lotte Miller, she was excellent last weekend, both in the individual race and in Norway's tremendous fourth place in the relay first time out.
Yeah, we both agree that she's had a really good, well, Hamburg was phenomenal. And I know she had a tough year last year with injury, a little bit of fatigue and illness. So to come back and have a really super strong race in Hamburg was brilliant. And I'm sure she's looking for another strong race today.
Just keep an eye on Maya Kingma as well. Her running is improving all the time. A little bit further down the list we go. Jillian Sanders from South Africa, who's 38 now, but she doesn't look a day over 30. Anyone else there on that list that we maybe should look out for?
Lisa Turch, I've definitely got her marked down. She's a super quick runner. She was third in Lausanne World Championships last year. So yeah, one to look out for. She's run like a 16:37 last week in Hamburg. She had one of the fastest runs.
It is a big field, nearly 70 women taking their chance today, so just move it on a little bit. Therese Versinger, she was one of the two in that early break on the bike last weekend, wasn't she?
Yeah, Teresa, she's super. I'm really impressed by Teresa. Yeah, like you said, she was in that breakaway with Jess Lermont. She stayed in that group, got a top 10, and yeah, I think a lot to come from her today.
And a little bit further down, Lisa Berger, we've seen her many times, the Swiss triathlete. Stina Dahle, now she was in that relay. It was a real baptism of fire for her, wasn't it, last week? But I mean, you know, fourth was a great position, and she's only going to benefit from being part of races like this.
Yeah, like you said, she's part of that Norwegian contingency in the relay, and did a super job of being able to race with these girls, and like you said, a lot of experience. And just to mention number 47, Jasmine Weber, who's Anja Weber's sister, and Anja Weber's a junior Swiss athlete, and I know a very keen cross-country skier as well. So they've got a lot of, I think, aerobic base and potentially one to watch out for in the future as well.
And just the last few on the list there. Mikanova from the from Slovakia rather, will wear number 16. McConnell is in for Ireland, number 59. And if the men's race that we saw earlier is anything to go by, this is going to be just a terrific viewing event, because it's a course made for breakaways. It's a course made to give the athletes a really tough test. And you just can't really have a weak leg, whether it's swim, bike or run here, because if you do, you're probably out the picture, certainly as far as the podium's concerned.
Sure, yeah. This course is very much like Lausanne World Champs. It's tough, it's technical, very challenging on the bike, and a really tough run as well. You don't normally get such a tough run off a hard bike. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, here's the course then. We kick off in the water, 1,500 metre swim. It's 2 equal laps. First turn buoy is a couple of hundred metres in. And they come out towards, or swim towards the wooden pier, out the water, and then it's onto the bikes. And it's a cleverly designed course. There's an initial approach of around about 6.5 Ks, and then 7 laps of just under 5 kilometres each around the city centre. So total distance 40 kilometres. A 20% gradient on every lap, and that can really sort them out. We saw a breakaway in the men's race. Every chance of seeing another one here. Finally onto the run. They transition on Theatre Square, and then a 4-lap run, 4 equal laps to make up the 10-kilometre total distance. Lots of narrow turns. There are climbs as well. It is a genuine test of running ability after their legs would have been sapped during the bike. So obviously these are live pictures, the athletes on the pontoon and getting ready for what should be a fascinating race. And as we said, so many big names in there. The big three, Zafiris, Taylor-Brown and Liermont and Duffy, big four if you like. Looking forward to seeing Flora in particular. Would expect her probably to be out front along with Jess Liermont in the swim. Katie also obviously is very consistent in the water. Be surprised if she isn't there or thereabouts as well.
Definitely. I think swimmers to look out for, Jess Liermont, Lopez. Obviously, we mentioned Teresa wearing number 43, super strong swimmers. And like we said in the men's race, it's going to be a really quick start to that first buoy. They haven't got far to swim to it, and I can see a lot of girls going out pretty hard.
Well, we're going to find out very shortly, because race start just a few moments away. Maybe 60 women on the start line here, all going to be vying to get into position, because you don't want to be in a compromising place at that first buoy, which is only 200 metres in. You can get jostled and stood up, and your race can potentially be over before it's even nearly started if you get it wrong. Jess Liermont nearest to camera. She's wearing number 3. Well, Lindemann is next to her. Number 4. Stand by. So away they go then. A 1,500 metre swim to kick things off. The numbers to look for: Jess Liermont number 3, Flora Даффи number 7, and Кейти Зафирес number 1.
It was pretty interesting that you could see closest to camera we had Jessica Liermont, Laura Lindemann and Flora Даффи all had chosen this right-hand side, and as you can see, it's worked out for them well, because Jess has got a really quick and smooth start to this first buoy.
What is it that makes Jess Liermont such a stunning swimmer? I mean, obviously there's natural aptitude which you can't teach, but there's a lot that you can. Why does she do it so well?
Efficiency. She's so efficient. Her body position is really good in the water as well. And I mean, you can't go wrong with experience. Jess has been swimming from a really young age. But you're right there, Trev. Like, she just has a natural body position. Her arm turnover is really quick. And for a triathlete, I actually think that's a positive thing.
She was actually something of a late starter, really. I mean, she's 32 now. And I mentioned earlier, she's got 9 podium finishes. That's in WTS races. 4 bronze, 5 silver, never won one. But I mean, her running over the last 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, has come on an absolute storm.
Yeah, like you said, like Jess has come from like a football background, so
yeah.
she swam from a young age, went to football, did a bit of riding just like as a hobby, and then started triathlon pretty late. But she's super talented, got so much potential, and over the years she's just had this natural progression, and she's still progressing now. So yeah, I think there's still so much more to come from Jess. And at the end of last year with Lausanne, her performance in Lausanne was it was so positive and such a massive leap in the right direction. Like I said, there's just so much more to come from her.
Victoria Lopez also in a prominent position, no surprise. We see the Brazilian there time and time again. And so this is the first buoy they're heading into. No problem, obviously, for the first 4 or 5. They've got, pretty much clear water, but it's after that kind of large pack in the middle that you can see. That's where there can be some problems. The swimmers on the right, as we look, having to cut across. You just hope that no one gets splashed about too much. You can see that buoy getting some stick. You can't swim underneath it, by the way, in case you were wondering. That's not allowed. No issues for Lermont. She just goes powering on.
It's such a strong and smooth stroke, and like the rhythm as well of her stroke. When she's out in front as well, you've got no one hitting you. You can get into that rhythm. Yeah, she's definitely set a pace here, and obviously in her mind is wanting to make the swim as hard as possible to just make sure that it splits up a little bit, because we don't want like 20 girls going around this course, because that's when things like crashes start happening, things like that. So for Jess, she's wanting to put the pressure on from the gun and to make this swim as hard as possible.
Just getting confirmation that it was a clean start, so no time penalties. 15-second time penalty today for any infraction. And if you're wondering about the colouring of the swim caps, every 10 athletes have different colours, and it basically helps the officials look for any kind of misconduct, especially around the swim buoys. Obviously, we'll let you know if there are any penalties of any kind. At the moment, their biggest problem is just avoiding those ducks. Yeah, they're heading out the way. They got more sense. And getting the way of Jess Lermont going at full power.
Worth mentioning as well, the air temperature has risen quite a bit, hasn't it, since the men's race. It's 27 degrees.
That's warm.
It's warm, and it's going to make a huge difference to I think, the results. It's a challenging course, so your body temp, like we mentioned in the men's, it rises having to go up the hills, and you're actually burning a lot more energy just trying to keep yourself cool. So I think that might have an effect on the results.
So just for our friends in the US and some other countries that still use Imperial, that's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is hot. Obviously, they've got to get out the wetsuits. The water temperature around about 20 degrees. Again, those in the middle right there can take a bit of a pounding. Saw one athlete get stood up. I'm not quite sure who that was. Might have been Garcia from Spain, but that's always the problem. Meanwhile, the serene stroke of Jess Lermont. And we've seen plenty of times where, I think that's actually Miriam Casillas Garcia, is it?
That's Lopez, on her feet, and then we've got Katie as well, Katie Zafirez.
Yeah.
So Katie's had a good start.
We've seen often, haven't we, the likes of Katie and sometimes Flora get on Jess Learmont's feet. Georgia Taylor-Brown, normally not too far away in the water either. She's wearing number 2, if you want to look out for it.
There's Georgia Taylor-Brown that's just come on screen now. So she's placing quite high up in the swim right now. We're just coming to the end of lap 1. So she's definitely in a good position leading on to lap 2.
Yeah, just keep yourself out of trouble. Taking the tiger line around that buoy, although she might have just got a bit of a jostle there.
The pace is on because Jess is already stringing out the field, and we've done less than 750 metres, and there's already gaps appearing in the packs.
Yeah, we saw again, didn't we, in Hamburg, the sheer power of Jess Lermont swimming, and she's not a shabby biker either. She's very good on the bikes. I think from Georgia Taylor-Brown's point of view and from Flora Duffy's point of view, just as long as they're there or thereabouts, that'll be the aim. We know how serene Flora is on the bike. So if she does have some kind of small deficit, I can't believe she wouldn't be able to make it up if she's back to any kind of sort of normal Flora fitness.
Sure. I think in the best case scenario for the likes of Georgia Taylor-Brown, Flora, and Jess Lermont, they all want to be together and work together because they're all three are strong riders in Кейти Зафирес. However, I think if Georgia comes out the water ever so slightly down on Flora Даффи and Jessica Lермонт, it's going to be quite hard for her to get back on those wheels, because once Flora Даффи goes, she goes, and it's hard to pull her back.
Just saw Laura Lindemann go round that boy wearing number 4. You could tell how stoked she was to get a medal last weekend when we heard that interview from her. She always feels under so much pressure in a home race. She has medalled there before, so there's a kind of expectation level. I think she's just really nervous about what she sees as letting people down, but she didn't.
Yeah, I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy that she got a medal. She's a lovely person as well. Deserved it tremendously. Like, she's got so much. I think she's definitely one to look out for in Tokyo. Like, she finished 6th in the test event, and I mean, she mentioned in the VT that she crashed here in 2018. I remember actually because it was wet, so it was very unfortunate. Because I think if she hadn't have crashed, she probably would have either won it or podiumed at least. So yeah, I think she'll probably look for today to try and get a good result.
So they're just about to complete the first lap of their 2 in the water. And Jess Lermont, obviously, no surprise at all. She might want to just ease up a bit. She doesn't want to be 5 or 6 lengths ahead of the nearest pursuer.
Well, that's it. She's done the right thing. She's broken up the field, which is good for her. It's good for the likes of Кейти Зафирес and Флора Даффи. But maybe just having a look behind her, she just wants Lopez to stay on her feet, because you want to coax these other athletes to come with you. You don't want to go it alone. She does need a bit of company, so hopefully she'll just have a look back, see that Кейти, Zafiris and Lopez aren't far behind. We've got Nat Vancouver that's just come round the turn and about to dive back in as well. So if Nat can make it onto the group to Кейти Zafiris' feet. Laura Lindemann had a great swim there, and Flora Даффi's just out behind Laura Lindemann. We've got a bit of a gap. That's number 28, and that is Pole from Germany. Lottie Miller, just coming out the water from Norway.
No style points, just trying to get as much distance as you can with that dive out for the second lap. Vancouver actually had a decent performance in Hamburg. She was 13th, and she based herself in Germany. She didn't have to go through the same protocols as the Australians who are based down under, so that's why she's here, the only Aussie flying the flag proudly, as we look at Кейти Зафирес. Not much wrong with that stroke either.
No, I was about to say Katie's got a lovely stroke as well. Very rhythmic, 6-beat leg kit. Arm action's really good, so she's obviously efficient with her pulling under the water.
And Lopez on Katie's feet.
Yeah, and then Nat's just managed to get on Lopez's feet as well. So Nat at the moment, Natalie Vancouver of Australia, is making that break as long as she can stay on the feet of Lopez from Brazil.
Vancouver, who was actually scouted by the legendary coach Jamie Turner as a teenager. It's always a good move to work with Jamie Turner. She got one podium, that was Abu Dhabi, WTS-wise this is, one podium in Abu Dhabi, season opener in 2018.
Yeah, Nat's been involved in triathlon for a long time actually. I've known her since World Junior Champs, and she's so talented and such a hard worker as well. You know, earning World Series podiums, like World Champs at juniors, like and under 23s. That she's a really talented athlete. And she actually raced Super League Arena Games in Rotterdam just before Hamburg, and she did really well in that, like finishing 4th, racing the likes of Jess Lermont, Georgia Teylor-Braun, Rachel Klammer from the Netherlands. So yeah, I think Hamburg was very promising, and today, being in that breakaway at the moment in the swim, it also looks promising for today's result.
I was looking back at her history, actually. She got a World Cup bronze in Tongyeong 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I think, you know, if she was being 100% honest, she probably might admit that she could have possibly achieved a bit more than she has done in the intervening period. But now it looks like she might be on the up curve again, and at 27, that's a prime age.
Oh yeah, and you know, we were discussing in the men's race, there's such a vast age difference between some that are like 20 years old, 19 that were in that race, and like mid-30s. So the good thing about triathlon is that you can have such a long career and still make improvements, even, you know, to your mid-30s.
Well, we're 12 and a half minutes in nearly, and you can see how strung out they are, courtesy of Jess Learmonth just flying out off the pontoon and really ripping into this field. I mean, first to last is probably, I don't know, 200 metres maybe, nearly more than that.
Yeah, she's really stretching out this field. And then if she'd just look behind maybe on the dead turn, she could see that Flora Daffy was just off the pace. She hadn't made that little mini group of Кейти Зафирес, Lopez and Van Coverdon. And in an ideal situation, you want Flora Даффи with you because you know she's going to push it on the bike.
Well, especially if, you know, she can potentially get some help from the likes of Taylor-Brown and others. If she's in that same group as Flora Daffy, although Flora's quite capable of riding on her own up to that lead group.
Well, that's it. Flora, actually, she competed in a 70.3 just before lockdown in Stellenbosch. And obviously that's all non-drafting, so we know how strong she is on the bike. So yeah, you want, in an ideal situation, you want Flora Daffy in your bike group.
Well, that's Learmonth, and then you need a pair of strong binoculars to see who's next. Look at this. I mean, I'm not sure it's going to benefit her, really. I mean, she can't bike solo for 40 Ks.
Well, I don't know. Like, when Jess is on one, she's so focused, so driven, and so strong. I wouldn't put it past her. I mean, if it was me, I would probably slow down a little bit, let Katie get on your feet, and then push on. Because dropping Katie is just making it a little bit harder, I guess, for Jess later on in the race if she's on the bike on her own. But it is a hilly course, so it means drafting-wise, apart from like maybe the lead into the transition bit where it's a bit flatter, I don't think you get too much benefit really being like, that's what I was on about being in bigger groups on this course. I don't think it actually benefits you that much. You want to be in groups of like 6 to 8 really. Yeah,
so we got Learmonth clear by a country mile, then a little group of 3, and then there's a further gap back. So depending what Learmonth does, we may well have potentially a quartet breakaway on the bike if she just eases up a little bit. Unless she wants to go for the solo ride, which we have seen Flora Даффи do.
Yes, yeah.
So it's not impossible.
No, and she's totally capable of it as well, Jess. It's just a bit of a gamble because you know how strong these girls are running. Like Flora Даффи, GTB, we saw her run incredible 5K last week. We know Кейти Зафирес can run strong off a hard course. We saw it in Lausanne last year at the World Championships. So it's just a slight gamble, I think. Laura Lindemann was having a really great swim. She was just out behind Flora Даффи when we saw her at the turn point after lap 1.
Well, I mean, she's coming off that confidence-building podium in the World Championships, Lindemann. So she should be really up for this as we watch Zafiris. And then Lopez. Katie's one of those that just so rarely has a bad race, although she had uncharacteristic issues in transition in Hamburg. She's just both shoes, and of course when you can't get the first shoe on, then your heart's racing, and then you have a problem with the second shoe, and before you know it, your chance has gone with some of those quick runners out there. Yeah,
like Кейти Зафирес is a triple threat. She's good at swim, bike and run. There is no weakness. I just think maybe in Hamburg a little bit rusty with just the swiftness of transitions, but that's not your fitness, and that's not showing that she's lacking it. It's just simply just one mistake and the race went up the road, and because it's a sprint distance, it just kind of magnifies that.
I think what says everything about Katie, I'm trying to remember where it was. I'm thinking Stockholm a few years ago where she crashed on the bike. and was kind of semi-concussed. And then as soon as she came round in the hospital, the first question was, did I win? Not, you know, what's the matter with me? What have I hurt? What have I done? It's, did I win?
Sorry, that's a mentality of a tough athlete. Like I've said it once before, she's a tough cookie, and she just impresses me no end. Кейти Зафирес. She'll come back from a pretty nasty crash and cut up half her face, and then go and win the next race.
Yeah, yeah. Look at the gap. This is ridiculous. I mean, these are not also-ran athletes that Jess Lermont is leaving in her wake here, literally. These are world-class triathletes like Zafiris and Duffy and Taylor-Brown and the rest. And, you know, you don't win a race in the water, sure, but it just shows you the utter brilliance of Jess Lermont in the water. And this is a wetsuit swim where basically that supposedly is an advantage to the lesser swimmers.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. She's just ridiculously classy on the swim.
Inside 18 minutes for Lermont. That is stupidly quick. So let's just see how far she is ahead. I mean, obviously, she wants to have as good a transition as possible. Oh, she's got problems with the wetsuit.
Just needs to not panic here. Get to a position on the bike, that's it. Oh yeah, we are having wetsuit issues there.
Wow, what a shame that is after all the hard. She's done it, okay.
We're good, but she's definitely lost a good 15 seconds there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I know she, you know, she might have tried the solo, but I'm not sure. And at least now she's made the lead group. It's not a problem. There's Katie.
Yeah.
There's Lopez.
Helmet problem as well for Jess Lermont, just not being able to clip in.
Yeah, Vancouver and Flora just arriving.
Nat's made that group.
Now Lindemann.
So Lara and Flora will be heading out onto the bike together.
There's Maya Kingma just coming into T1. And there's Taylor-Brown just behind.
You can see Lottie Miller just coming out the water there, exiting.
I mean, these are fully a minute and 15 back of Jess Lemont's time.
Yeah.
As the world champion Taylor-Brown gets onto the bike.
Rachel Klammer from the Netherlands just getting her helmet on.
Few of them having issues in transition today.
Yeah, they are actually.
So Klammer's away. Her partner Richard Murray ran well earlier on in the men's race.
Ackland of the USA about to get on a bike.
So we've got two.
Кейти Zaфирес and who else have we got? That's Jess. So Jess has managed to get on Katie's wheel, and actually maybe that was a blessing in disguise that she was having issues with her wetsuit, because it just meant that she just stopped, slowed down, and has now got Katie along for the ride. Yeah,
and it looked, that last shot we saw, there may be 2 or 3 about maybe 8 to 10 seconds back. So this is going to be absolutely critical. Well, we've seen this before. We've seen Lermont ride with Katie. We've seen Lermont ride with Duffy.
Yeah.
You know, two is okay, you know, especially with these two, well capable of getting away.
And these two are in sync as well. You can tell the way they're riding right now, they're riding aggressively, and they're just going for it. They're not hanging about for the others to catch.
Well, I mean, the way that Taylor-Brown ran last weekend, it's in their interest to try and keep her as far away as possible. Exactly what Кейти Зафирес said in the interview that her husband Tommy did with her that we showed you before this race. She said, plan A, get away with Jess. That was it.
Tick.
Yes, exactly.
Done it. I mean, we can see that little group in the background. They are making a little bit of time up, so maybe they will catch. But again, that's not a bad thing if you've got a little bit of manpower in the group.
Well, there's not, I don't know how many of them there are in behind, but it's not that many. maybe they've made a little bit of ground. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they have, and I'm going to put my money on that Flora might be doing the chasing, just because.
I'm not taking that bet.
Like this first 6.5K into town is pretty crucial, because if you can get out of sight of the chasers, then you're out of mind, and it makes a huge difference then when you come onto the circuit. Just being able to get over that climb and not be visually in the I guess being able for the other athletes chasing to actually see you.
So Liermont and Zafiris from the two nations that have just, aside from Bermuda, dominated women's triathlon for the last few years, the United States and Great Britain.
So they're about to commence a pretty decent descent into the town.
You've mentioned, Lucy, the collegiate system they have in the US with the women. So you can kind of see how they have this production line of, certainly of female triathletes. What about Great Britain? And you're obviously well placed to comment on this. How is it that we seem to have just producing so many top-class female triathletes?
Yeah, we do. I think there's a massive foundation for triathletes in the UK. A lot come from swim-run backgrounds. I also think like the likes of how well we did in 2012 in the London Olympics with like Alistair and Johnny Brownlee both podiuming, put triathlon on the map in the UK, because triathlon is a relatively unknown sport really in the UK. But when you get the likes of Alan, John Brownlee, and I'm sure in the US it's the same with Кейти Зафирес, Gwen Jorgensen, that make a bit of a name for themselves, more younger athletes then want to be a part of that and want to be a part of like the pool of recruitment.
I'll tell you this, there's not a single person in Bermuda hasn't heard of Flora Daffy.
Yeah.
There was I remember when she won the first triathlon in Bermuda, she won it, and I was walking in the town in the evening after the race, and a restaurant had put a sign outside on a blackboard that said Flora Daffy eats free. But probably she could have gone into any restaurant or any bar and they would have served her for nothing. Laura Lindemann hanging on to Duffy's wheel. They're chasing the Anglo-American leading duo. Lindemann, as you said, looking good so far today.
Yeah, I think she's had a really good winter's training as well, just from what she's like posted online and things. I know that she did like a track 5K run and like ran a 16 or nearly 16-minute 5K, which is really, really super quick. And I just think she's a strong athlete, and like for Turkey, I'd definitely like highlight her name for being like a potential podium athlete. She's super talented and a great like swim bike runner. Her swim is excellent today.
Yeah, she's had all kinds of injury problems. Of course, she was out for about a year, and then earlier this year she actually broke a bone in her hand on a swim rope in a swimming pool.
Oh, Flora Daffy.
Yeah, Flora.
She did. Yeah, she's had a pretty crazy year. So with the pandemic and then breaking a metatarsal, a fifth metatarsal, and not being able to leave Stellenbosch, it's been pretty nuts for her.
Up front then, Jess Liermont, Кейти Зафирес, trying to stay away from Duffy and Lindemann, and so far doing a decent job of it.
So they're about to go over the bridge down into the town, onto the loop. It's all pretty quick, and these two seem to be on the same page as them. They both want to work hard on this bike.
Zafiris looking absolutely focused today. Not that she doesn't usually. I thought it was quite amusing, her husband saying to her, what's your plan for the rest of the year? And I'm thinking, well, you should know. You should know. Well, maybe she was keeping it a secret, I don't know.
Always the professional.
Yeah.
I think like Katie wanting to race, she's obviously very fit at the moment. I'm wanting to just just see how she is against other international triathletes, especially leading into Tokyo.
Well, we've got a third now in that group, have we? No, that's another group.
So this is Teresa. This is Teresa from Austria. Teresa, do you remember we were on about how well she did in Hamburg for the swim? She was out with
went
Jeff.
for that early breakaway, didn't she?
Yeah, and so she's with Lopez and Van Coverdon on the bike.
That is actually the first chest strip, so that means that Duffy and Lindemann must be behind them.
Slightly behind. These three look like they're working really well together. So I don't think they'll catch Jess Learmonth and Кейти Зафирес. However, if Flora Даффи and Laura Lindemann catch up to these three, maybe you've got a good group of 5 there that can work together.
Yeah, we'll try and find out how far behind those three, Duffy and Lindemann, are. But at the moment, Кейti Zafires' plan to go with Jess Learmonth is paying off, and pretty spectacularly, because they got themselves a lead. And I think you're right. I think the issues that Jess Learmonth had in transition might actually end up being a benefit rather than a negative.
Yeah. I don't put it past Jess Learmonth to just go it alone, but I actually think having Katie, and especially only being Кейti Zafires, that there's no other athletes with those two, they're both going to push on and work hard. That's for sure. They want to make this as hard as possible. Like, they both in Lausanne had stellar performances, finishing first and second, and I think they're both going to run well off this kind of course as well. It's tough, it's hilly, it's a lot of corners involved. This suits both of these athletes down to a T.
I mean, the year that Katie won the world title, she was just, well, almost unbeatable. She had the one poor result in Hamburg where she had a bike issue. Other than that, she won every race she competed in, other than Leeds, where she finished behind Taylor-Brown.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive CV of races that she had in 2019. Obviously, she had that horrible crash in Tokyo, but then bounced back from it. So resilient to then take the win in Lausanne. It was incredible.
Well, it looks like someone's picked up a penalty, and it's Hannah de Vey of Belgium. So that's a 15 seconds in the penalty box, not what you want to see on the board.
Yeah, okay, we can see that Teresa from Austria, Natalie Vancouver and Lopez there, they're not far behind Jess Learmonth and Кейти Zafires. They just came into shot. And then there we have Flora Даффи and Laura Lindemann as well. So there's every chance of these guys all coming together.
Lindemann doing well to stay with Duffy. Match pedal stroke for pedal stroke. Baptiste, centre of your screen, a little group with Ackerland.
Some big hitters in that group. There's Lottie Miller, Steinhauser from Italy. Yeah, like Orla Aliciola from Italy as well. Like, there's some really good girls in that group. So Jess Learmonth and Кейти Zafires are spreading this field far apart, that's for sure.
Well, that's the way that both of them, you know, like to race.
And then this is the second climb that leads to the dead turn, and then they'll visually be able to see how far the likes of Flora Даффи and Laura Lindemann are behind them.
I just think it's really refreshing. The likes of Zafires and Learmonth and others, you can throw Flora into that mix, Taylor-Brown also, and several others. They don't want to ride round in a group of 35, 40 women and then just have a 10K foot race. That's not what it's like anymore.
No, not at all. A lot of these like new generational athletes, they just want to go hard from the gun, and a lot of them are not just like specialists like runners or swimmers. They are just swim, bike, runners. They are the full package triathletes, and it's exciting viewing to see. Like, I love seeing things like this where you've got chasers, like strong chasers, you've got the two out in front, and it's just, it's on a technical hilly course. It's just really exciting.
So on the uphill section, and now they get a little bit of relief with the downhill as we look at Vancouver, who by the look of it is now racing solo.
Yeah, she's been dropped by
Fersinger and Lopez, is it?
Yeah, that might be Lopez out in front. I can't see Teresa Fersinger though.
It's a lonely place to be.
Psychologically, when you know the likes of Georgia Taylor-Bраун and Flora Даффи are riding behind you and catching, yeah, it's hard. You need to make the decision whether you sit up and relax and wait to be caught, or you just press on like these two athletes, Jess Lehmann and Кейти Зафирес, are doing.
Yeah, I suspect for Vancouver, probably waiting to be caught might be a better option, but we'll see how it transpires.
Jess just looks so relaxed. Like just when they were climbing that second hill there, like her shoulders nice and relaxed. Like Katie's a little bit more just, I guess, stiff in the shoulders, and it just might be because climbing and this first lap out the swim is pretty tough. But Jess just looks like she could go at this pace for days.
Yeah, she's just so impressive. So getting the speed up down the hill.
Now it's a really long descent where we go into the high street along the cobbles. I'm glad it's dry, because in the wet it would have been a bit sketchy.
So now we've got 4 in the chasing group.
So I think Lopez might be in between the 2 in front and this group of 4. So we've got Vancouver, Teresa from Austria, and Flora, Bermuda, and who else have we got? Oh, Laura Lindemann from Germany. So that's a pretty good group. I think they'll work really well together.
So, well, they know what they have to do, and whether they can do it or not, it's another matter entirely. Try and reel in the 2 leaders.
So Georgia Taylor-Bраун just ahead of that contingency there that have caught up that group of 4.
So now we've got the 2 leaders and potentially a group of maybe 10 or so in behind that will include Duffy and Taylor-Bраун and Lindemann and Vancouver.
Yeah, you've got all the big hitters there.
So these 2 need to stay exactly where they are, which is dominating the race up to this point.
Yeah, now's the time to take on a bit of fluid, have a gel if you need it, and we're about to go into this bridge where we had that nasty incident in the men's race.
Yeah, big crash earlier. Only limited lighting. Jillian Sanders has crashed, we understand, so she's out of the race. And there's also been another casualty. Marie Sesnik of Poland is out too. It's funny, I was talking to Jillian on Monday, and she wasn't sure if she was going to race this event or not. Obviously she decided to. A fairly straightforward journey, because she's based in the United Kingdom, even though she's South African. But no joy for Jillian today. And that crash in the tunnel earlier, it just shows you can't afford to relax for a moment. Concentration has to be there the whole time. Split second and you can be in trouble.
For sure, and it can be draining as well. You're having to stay alert for the whole, 2 hours. It's just like from the gun to the finish line. You can't switch off at any point. There's Lisa Turch. She's someone that I definitely wanted to look out for today. A great runner. Obviously, soloing it at the moment in between groups, and that might be quite difficult for her, having to do this bike course solo.
So the 2 leaders looking good. Don't think at the moment that the chase group is gaining a lot of ground, and we'll try and get you these timings when they become available. It's looking with the naked eye. So through transition to complete their first lap. First lap is 7, just under 5Ks each lap.
So that second chase group just came into shot as Jess Lermont and Кейти Зафирес were leaving transition. So that should spur them on this next climb, just to try and push on, get a bit more time. And yeah, I mean, we've got 4 more laps to go, is that? Oh no, 5 more laps to go.
5 more.
Yeah.
5, well, nearly 6 actually, because
yeah.
it's just come through.
Lopez, Kingham from the Netherlands, George Taylor-Brown, Laura Lindemann, Flora Daffy. They're all in there.
So the lead is around about 30 seconds. Lermont and Zafiris' lead. Back to the group, including Lopez, well, including a whole host of big names, including Duffy and Lindemann, Vancouver and Taylor-Brown. There's just Georgia just going through in the middle of that group.
I think Maya Kingham is definitely one to watch as well. She's made some massive leaps forward in her development as an athlete. Like, I know she's been taking part in a few virtual bike races and showing that she's really got some power in those legs, and running super quick as well, like top 10 in Hamburg last week. That was such a gutsy performance. And yeah, definitely one to watch for 2021.
I was surprised actually that she's never made a World Cup podium, but it might be overdue.
Oh, potential, definite potential with Maya Kingham.
Every time we see the leaders, it seems like, well, Jess has been up front more often.
I think it's just Jess's racing style. She just feels more comfortable, more controlled if she leads. Like, I know she likes to lead the swim. She hates being on people's feet. So she'd rather sit on the front. And even though it might be harder, I think mentally she actually prefers it and finds it easier in that sense. So yeah, that's probably why we see her more on the front, and especially as a two-up.
Just as we say that, Katie has a go up front. They were listening.
Of course.
But they've done a great job to get themselves half a minute advantage over the likes of Duffy and Taylor-Brown.
Yeah, I think if they want the best possible chance coming off the bike, they just need to extend their lead. Because we know how quick Georgia Taylor-Brown can run, and again, like Flora, super quick, and some of those other guys like Rachel Klammer, Lopez, Baptista, they're all really quick runners that you don't, if you want to give yourself the best shot at a podium, you just keep pushing on this bike.
It's interesting that the only 2 women in the top 10 numerically today who've actually raced this course before is Frintova, who won the race actually for the last 2 years, and Ayueda. But it certainly lack of course familiarisation doesn't seem to be hindering Zafiris and Lermont so far. I mean, they would have ridden this week, obviously, so they've had a look.
Yeah, for sure, and I'm sure they would have looked at probably like videotapes and things like that of the course and course maps. Athletes just like to try and get as much chance of riding the course as possible, just to familiarise themselves as much as possible. But yeah, like you mentioned, like Frintova, obviously this is a home race for her. She's had some really good results in Karlovy Vary, winning it multiple times. So I'm sure she would have hoped to have done well today. But at this moment in time, we've got these 2 out in front, and we've mentioned it before. This is a big start line, and some really classy girls that are racing.
Yeah, Flintova's won it. Well, this race for the last 2 years, and she won it in 2014, and she was second in 2017, so it's kind of almost her own property, but she's up against some stiff competition today. She actually she turned 37 a few days ago, so...
Oh, happy birthday, Frintova.
Yeah, well over 200 races. Ayueda also in that 200 club.
Yeah, that's crazy, that statistic. That's nuts. But yeah, Ayueda, a great runner, and I think if she was up nearer the front on the bike, she would really hope to run well today. But again, like getting ready for Tokyo, it's all about trying to get a bit of race experience leading into that race, and taking the opportunities of racing when you can, because obviously we're limited on what races are happening.
I mean, you obviously raced in the Olympics in London, Lucy, in 2012. At what point before the Olympics do you start like doing some serious planning? I mean, the likes of Zafiris and Liermont, where let's assume the Olympics do happen, we all hope they will. We're just under a year away. How does that build into your thinking for now and for the next few months and early part of next season?
Yeah, I think every athlete's different on their build-up to an Olympic Games. Like some federations choose their teams well in advance of the Olympics, so they give their athletes the best possible chance of the best preparation, whereas some athletes don't really get selected until maybe 3-4 months out of the Olympic Games, and they just have to kind of have that mentality of, oh, I've been selected even though they haven't been yet, and this is what I'm prepping for. So yeah, it varies for different athletes, but like like Jessica Lermont, I'm sure they're trying to get as prepped as much as possible for Tokyo as they can, but no one really knows the time frame really. I mean, we've got like a sort of temporary date, but we'll see what happens. And all these athletes can do is prep the best they can.
And I mean, you have to assume it's happening, obviously.
Yes. Yeah,
obviously
you do. Yeah. But like I mentioned, like athletes are resilient. They can adapt pretty quickly, I'd say, because you have to deal with injury, illness all the time. Like, it's inevitable. At some point in your career, you get ill or injured, and you have to adapt. And that's exactly what they're going to have to do with this pandemic. You just adapt.
The chasing group just coming out of the tunnel. So 7 of them now, by the look of it. I still wonder about the state of Flora Duffy's race fitness, because we mentioned she's had injury after injury after injury, and she won't. Not that she's old, but she's another 30-something, and the older you get, the longer it takes to recover. All these kind of things. It takes you a while to get back in the groove of this.
Yeah, I think with Flora Duffy, she's got so much more time at ITU if she wanted to, but maybe after Tokyo, like, we've seen her do a 70.3, so maybe looking at the longer stuff in the future. So like a lot of athletes would have planned exactly what they're going to do up to Tokyo, and then after Tokyo, whether they can continue racing ITU level or they move over to the longer stuff. So I think whatever she decides to do, she'll be successful at it. I think everyone's had to alter their plans ever so slightly by 12 months.
Well, because originally she said she was going to retire from WTS after the Bermuda Grand Final 2021. Of course, the Grand Final is now going to be in Edmonton because they didn't get it this year.
Sure.
Bermuda will have a Grand Final of sorts, super sprint and relay. Obviously, Flora's not in the, Bermuda doesn't have a team, so it gets complicated. She's going to just have to think about exactly what she wants to do after Tokyo.
Sure. I wouldn't rule out her kind of flickering between 70.3 longer stuff and also the ITU stuff, because we see like Gustav Eden and Blumenfeld do the same. They do the longer stuff, and like Blumenfeld's world record holder over 70.3, and then he goes and smashes Lausanne World ITU Championships, so it can be done. Yeah,
and especially on tough courses like Leeds, for example. You think Duffy'd still be a major threat in her early mid-30s.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd never ever rule her out.
Well, how much power do we see from Nikki Spirig? That Lausanne race on the bike, she was unbelievable.
Incredible, yeah.
She, of course, is going for another Olympics. Spirig in Tokyo. I was listening to an interview with her, an ITU interview with her, and they were talking about that fantastic finish with Lisa Norden in London, 2012 Olympics.
Yeah.
And they said to her, and I think I'd asked her this years before as well, did you know that you'd won? And she was kind of, I thought I had, but I wasn't absolutely, I wasn't absolutely sure.
Could you imagine that time between maybe you crossing the line, not knowing whether you'd won or not? How nerve-wracking would it have been?
Well, the best quote was Lisa Norton. She said, if I'd had bigger boobs, I'd have won. That's what she said. It was literally by the width of a vest.
It was very tight, to be fair, yeah.
So a 40-second lead from the leaders to the chase group, and then another minute and a quarter back to the second chase group. So they're not making any ground on Lermont and Zafiris. In fact, the opposite.
A lot of good athletes in this group as well. Baptista, Lottie Miller, I can see Ackland as well, Rachel Klammer. Rachel Klammer's had a pretty good year, like finishing, well, when I say year, like Hamburg she raced and finished 8th, and then a bit of the Super League virtual racing, finishing 2nd in the Arena Games, a bit of virtual cycling Zwift as well. So yeah, she's done what you can, I guess, over the year, like with in terms of racing.
You know, like some moments in sport, you get a lump in your throat.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what sport it is. Excuse me. When she won in Abu Dhabi,
yeah,
that was one of those moments. It was actually her 50th WTS race, first win, and just the look on her face for the last, I don't know, 100 meters or so down the blue carpet up to the line, when she kind of realized.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, I've finally achieved this after trying and trying and trying. I don't think there's never been a more there are lots of popular winners, but no one more popular than her, I don't think, because she's just such a great girl,
yeah,
and you know, genuinely nice woman. And for her to win that race, and as you say, she's very, very consistent, excellent runner, just doesn't have too many bad races. And even last year, you know, a 4th place in Hamburg, a couple of top 12s in Bermuda and Leeds, and they're tough courses.
Oh, for sure.
Duffy just on the back there of that group. Oh, that's a wow. Oh, that could have been really nasty.
Yeah.
She just managed to get control back before that would have been straight into the motorcycle.
For sure. She did really well, actually, to hold that, and
yeah,
the motorcycle did well as well to avoid a collision there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this course. It's just, like we said, it's physically challenging, and also mentally you have to keep on it. And if you're in a group, your wheel touches, and you know that could be you coming off your bike. And yeah, I think it's just a lapse in judgment that caused Flora maybe to go on the other side of the course.
And if a course challenges Flora Duffy's bike skills,
yeah,
then it can challenge anyone's, because she's one of the best there is, or has ever been.
Well, that was a testament to her bike skills that she held that.
She managed to recover. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it could have been really nasty. That if they'd had the old heart monitor on her, that'd have been through the roof, wouldn't it? There. But it just shows, and we've said it so many times today in the men's race and this women's event, and kind of no apologies for repeating it, that you have to stay continually focused. It's not just a physical endeavour, triathlon. There's a big mental side to it as well. And the mental side is almost as tiring as the physical side.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Like, I meant they would have had a taster in Lausanne, but because we've had, well, nearly 10, 11 months of no races, they've not been able to exercise that kind of like mentality of having to really focus for 2 hours of racing. So you're pushing your body a lot, like to a real like hard level, and then also staying focused. That's tough, and these guys haven't had that for so long now.
Well, these two blissfully unaware of the drama going on behind them. Just trying to keep this 45-second lead over the chasers. See, at least Flora managed to recover and stay in the race. even for someone as experienced as her, it would have shaken her up a bit.
For sure. I mean, Flora has got so much experience at like the Xterra champs as well, so we know her bike handling skills are phenomenal. But yeah, no one wants to clip a wheel and nearly have a collision. So yeah, like I said, they both, the cameraman and Flora both did well there to avoid.
Meanwhile, Zafiris and Liermont enjoying themselves up front. They're round about halfway, just over halfway through the bike course. Nearly 55 minutes in total in the race. And so far it's gone perfectly. And if they do come off the bikes together and they do have a lead of 35, 40, 45 seconds, all past history would suggest that Zafiris would have the edge over 10,000 metres. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the strange thing about this year is we don't really know where everyone is in terms of like their Olympic fitness, their Olympic distance fitness. Everyone's got slightly different preparation for the races this year in terms of like having access to swimming pools, being able to actually train outside. Some athletes have been very lucky in the sense that they could just go about their daily training as usual, but then other athletes have been totally locked down and not been able to go outside at all. So it varies across each athlete here today. The main thing is they're back racing and they're getting the experience that they need in preparation for the Olympic Games, which is the big one next year.
Yeah, well, I think actually racing last week will have sharpened both of these women up a little bit. I mean, they talk in horse racing, don't they talk about, a horse, especially a thoroughbred, like needing a run. And these two are triathlon thoroughbreds for sure. And it just, you can be fit, and any sportsman will tell you, you can be fit, but you may not be race fit or match fit or whatever the sport is. And that's certainly the case this season with so little racing.
Oh yeah, totally agree. And even between last weekend and this weekend, I can tell the difference between Кейти Зафирес. She just seems a lot more confident on the bike. You can tell she's just got that from having a race under her belt. Yeah, I think we're seeing like the Кейти Зафирес we know and love in this race.
Well, the crowd making a lot of noise as they come through to complete their third lap. That's Lopez just going through, Arnold at the back, fellow countrywoman.
So that bike lap there, Jess and Katie went through in 8:32, and Maya Kingma that was at the front of this bike group, the second chase group, 8:29. So they're basically holding Katie and Jess, if not put a little bit of time into them every lap. Here's the third bike pack, the likes of Rachel Klammer and Natalie Vancouver.
Yeah, spectators, as you can see, they get to watch events on the big screen, and then they see this kind of action every lap as the triathletes hurl through transition. So there you go, 37 seconds. So yeah, as you said, they've made a few seconds, got a few seconds further ahead, and then the chase group is more than a minute behind the first chase group.
Yeah, that third bike pack, they're definitely losing time. They're losing about 15 seconds per lap. It's so difficult when like we were talking about out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. And if you can't see that chase group, it just becomes a lot more difficult to chase.
Yeah, I mean, you'd fancy Rachel Klammer there to be able to run through, quite a few of her fellow triathletes, but when you're starting from so far back, it just completely rules out. Well, you're lucky to catch anyone ahead of you in the other two packs, basically. Tough to give a minute to some of these names, but we'll see how it pans out. They're only on the fourth lap of the bike, so plenty can happen. And if you were with us earlier for the men's race, we had unbelievable drama with just 1,000 meters left on the bikes, and we had that crash in the tunnel. I wonder if any of these women actually watched that. I wonder if they saw that.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Just because, again, it's just another insight in how the race pans out on this course, because it gives these athletes just a bit of an idea of there is a chance of a breakaway. These are how the guys have attacked the course, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm sure these girls were well aware that there was a bit of a nasty incident into the tunnel.
Yeah, and there was a 3-hour gap between the men's race finishing and the women's race starting, so they wouldn't have been down in the transition zone taking their bikes down at that point. Taylor-Bраун last we saw was in the first chase group. And brilliant a runner as she is, can she give Zafires and Lirmont 35 seconds? Maybe, maybe not.
I don't think these two are okay to hang about. They just want to crack on and get as much time as they can, and if they can. At the moment, they're holding that chase group, or maybe just losing a few seconds here and there, but they're definitely doing the right thing by just head down and just go.
You mentioned that Jess Lirmont came from a football background, and Кейти Зафирес, she played everything as a kid. She played football, she played lacrosse, got a PE degree from Syracuse University. Almost sickeningly talented, really.
Just an all-rounder.
Yeah. So we're pretty much an hour in. Just trying to think, what do we know? What have we learned from the first hour that maybe we didn't know before? Well, certainly nothing in the water. We always knew how good Lirmont is, and just further proof really of the mentality of both Lirmont and Zafires, that they want to get away, because as you say, they know the dangers lurking in behind with the likes of Duffy and Taylor-Bраун and others.
I think a standout swim, though, for me was Laura Lindemann. She just had such a good swim. And if she can swim like that in the Olympic Games, wow, quids in. So, yeah, I'm sure her coach is very, very happy with that swim. And also having a good bike leg, 'cause like we mentioned before, Laura Lindemann unfortunately had a bike crash back in 2018 here in Kaрловы Вары. So this race is definitely going better than back in 2018.
But when you look at these two, and you look at Duffy in behind, and obviously there's no Vicky Holland today, a former world champion, and there's no Taylor Spivey, the really talented young American. It makes you realise that the Tokyo's it's a wide open affair. I mean, if you had to say a name now, it's tough. It's really tough.
Oh sure, yeah. I wouldn't want to put money on people. Yeah, I would struggle to give you 3 names now, that's for sure. But that's sort of what's so cool about the Olympic
Games. That's how it should be.
Yeah,
exactly how it should be.
One day, one race, and it's literally it's the best athlete wins on the day.
And actually, if you look back at Olympic triathlon history, men's and women's, there are not too many favourites who have won. A few. Ali Brownlee in London wasn't the favourite in Rio.
No.
Gwen Jorgensen was the favourite. Emma Snowsill, I think, would have been the favourite when she won.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean,
surprises.
No.
Yeah.
We know that the gap is a pretty big one. Just be careful, sir. Get across quickly. Thank you. There we go. Took a bit of a risk, but he's all right.
Look at the risk from GTB there from the United Kingdom, just telling Maya Kingma to come through, take a turn. These girls look like they're actually working really well together. So we will get a time gap in a minute to see if they've closed down on these two breakaway athletes.
I mentioned Jillian Sanders had crashed, the South African triathlete. She is officially now out of the race. and so too is Sophie Watts of the United States. So once again, this Karlovy Vary course has taken its fair share of casualties. So 4 laps completed now by our 2 leaders. Three more to go. And that 4th lap, exactly the same time as the 3rd.
They're very consistent.
To the 2nd.
Yeah.
To the 2nd.
That's good though. That means they're consistent, they're relaxed, and I mean, this chase group is putting a few seconds in every time.
Yeah.
However, I think if they keep going the way they are, they're still going to have a healthy lead.
Well, they may have made up a few, 5 or 6 seconds maybe on that lap. So if they keep on doing that, the lead will be maybe 25 seconds, something like that, as we look at one of the checks. Simeon over. Lindemann just ahead of her with Maya Kingma and Taylor-Brown on the right-hand side there, with Duffy on the left. So Duffy, Taylor-Brown and Kingma would be the running power in that group once they get off the bikes.
Simeon over from the Czech Republic in that 2nd chase group is having a really good race. Like, she finished 34th in Hamburg, but she's in good company with the likes of Georgia Teylor-Bраун and Flora Даффи. Like, she's having a good ride, and also it's a home race, so I'm sure that's spurring her on.
Yeah, there's something about competing on home soil that just gives you that kind of added boost, because you know everyone in the crowd's rooting for you.
For sure.
I think that's, I mean, it was evident obviously in Bermuda when we had the racing there with Flora, but also hugely in Leeds.
Oh yeah.
You know, with on the men's and the women's side for Great Britain actually.
For sure, and the same in Hamburg for Laura Lindemann.
Yep, and the year that the Germans won the relay,
yes,
I've never known anything like it. There we go. So that shows you the gap is 30 seconds now, and the 2nd chase group, as we were saying, is just losing time hand over fist at the moment.
Yeah. I think maybe they're just not that organised in this 3rd group. So if we have no sort of lead athlete that's setting the tone and setting the pace in the 3rd chase pack, then everyone just kind of tries to survive up the hill, relax on the descent, and then again they just make the next lap and survive up the hill, relax on the descent. So there's no real chase happening, it's just survival.
Natalie Vancouver's out the race, which is disappointing for her and obviously for those who enjoy watching a race. But no joy for Natalie today after what was a very promising start at one point. Elistratova cornering there. So on the downhill section, if they could get this lead to, I don't know, down to 20 seconds, which is not out of the question, it would be very, very interesting to see whether the likes of Duffy and Taylor-Brown could make inroads onto the 2 leaders. I mean, the way that Georgia Teylor-Bраун raced last weekend, you wouldn't put anything past her.
We would have a real race on our hands. We'd have Laura Lindemann, Flora Даффи, Maya Kingma and Georgia Teylor-Bраун all racing for podium spots there, if they get within 20 seconds, for sure.
I mean, I thought...
Okay, so Кейти Зафирес is just pulled up.
So Zafiris has been dropped by Liermont, unless she's got some kind of a problem.
Yeah, she doesn't look too relaxed. I don't know what's happened there, but Katie's been pulled back to that group.
So now it would seem as though Liermont will have about a half-minute lead on her own. Now that Zafiris is back in that chasing group. That was a strange one. You've got to think something happened there to Katie. Something must have happened. Well, she's hanging on to the back of the pack, so let's hope that there's nothing untoward there as far as Katie's concerned. Well, we mentioned that the problems that Liermont had in transition with a wetsuit and the helmet may have worked to her advantage. This now, if she does have a 30-second lead, and we'll check on the leader the first chance we get, if she has this 30-second lead and she can hold it or keep it somewhere near that for the next couple of laps,
yeah,
that might work in her favour too.
For sure, and I'm sure coming out that swim, she had in her head that she was just going to go for it, whether she had Katie or she was going to solo it. So yeah, let's see how this goes. But I think Katie got dropped there.
Well, if she did, that's... I'm trying to think. I don't remember that happening to her before. Even, you know, when she's been riding with the likes of Duffy, I don't remember it. Could be wrong. I mean, she's had crashes before, but that's a first, I think.
Yeah, I think Jess might have just gapped her at the top of that climb, maybe, and Katie's made the decision that she's just spending too many pennies and just wants to sit in this group, try and...
There's our leader.
Yeah, so we've got eyes on Jess again. We can see where she's at, and looking very relaxed, very focused, and probably actually a little bit happier to just head down and solo it, to be honest.
Well, I don't recall, I mean, talking about firsts, I don't recall Liermont being up front on her own on a bike. Certainly not in a race for many years in a WTS event. Just got to be careful, get away from those barriers.
Yeah, we jest, but those barriers can, like, if you clip one of the sides of them, like I think it was Katie in Tokyo and Kirsten Kasper, and oh, yeah, it was a horrible crash.
Yeah, one slight misjudgment. Yeah. Well, I think that lead is less than 30 seconds, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we haven't had an official timing, but just to the naked eye.
Yeah, yeah. I still think it's worth Jess just pressing on, though, just because it just applies a bit of pressure to this group that's chasing. And I think for Jess, she'll run well off the bike if it was hard or an easy bike, to be honest. Just a little bit of a look back just to see where the group is, because I think she's aware that they might be in catching distance.
Well, you would think that the race now might play into the hands of Taylor-Brown, Duffy, possibly Lindemann, who have been in the chasing pack the whole time, and if they do catch on, or even if they're only a few seconds back in a couple of laps' time, because there's only 10k to go on the bike now, and that lead is less than 30 seconds, no question.
For sure. This is tough, soloing it. Just from like experience when I did it in 2018, and I soloed it and I got such bad cramp. So I hope that Jess doesn't have that effect from the hills, because then you're going on to a hilly run, and that's the toughest thing. Running down the hills on the run, that's what's really hurts your quads.
I bet. What possessed you to make the solo break then?
I don't know.
Impetuosity of youth, was it?
Yeah, maybe something like that. It felt like a good idea at the time.
Well, no shortage of support from the crowd here. Zafiris just in the middle of that little group.
Yeah, I think Zafiris has probably made the decision that Jess is just going at a pace that maybe is unsustainable for Katie right now, and she's, for the 10k run, she's just thinking about maybe just conserving a little bit of energy, because she looks pretty comfortable in that group there climbing. So maybe she's just made that decision to sit back in the group and try and conserve a bit of energy. The Czech athlete maybe that had just dropped off that chase pack.
Really not where you want to be.
No,
at all.
Not at all.
So on the climb then, Jess Learmont. Great swim. She was country mile clear of anybody else. A few issues in transition. Off on the bike with Кейти Зафирес for the first 30 Ks or so. And now finding herself all alone up front.
But she still looks really relaxed, like strong turnover, like cadence. She's still got a gel to take in the next 2 laps, which is going to be vital on this course because, like we were saying, it's very taxing. You need that nutrition and you need the fluids, especially because it's hot, it being 27 degrees.
Well, full marks for bravery, that's for sure. Full marks as ever for her swim.
For sure, and I'm still confident she'll run well off this. I think it'll really suit her running off a hard bike. We saw it in Lausanne. Like she ran so well. That's probably the best I've ever seen Jess run.
Yeah, finished second behind Кейти.
Yeah. And she ran like an absolute pro. So I'm not counting her out just yet for a podium. She'll turn around on this dead turn now and be able to see how far that chase group is.
Well, it's a handy lead for sure.
Yeah, maybe just under 30 seconds maybe. But she's holding it, and I think if she can do another lap and a half like this and get a 30-second lead.
Well, then she's given herself the best possible chance, but that's all you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, it's a gutsy performance. Jess Learmont races gutsy. This is what she does best. This is how she likes to race as well. So this suits her down to a T, and she won't be fazed by the fact that she can see the chase pack.
So I wonder what's going through the minds of these chasers. I mean, they know they're 30-odd seconds back from Learmont. Are they kind of happy to stay that far back and take their chances on the run, the likes of Taylor-Brown and Duffy, or are they thinking we really got to try and motor and reduce that deficit?
Yeah, I think with the great thing about triathlon is you don't really know how you're going to feel or be until you get onto the run.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just think, I feel awful, I need to conserve the energy, and you get onto the run and you'd be like, oh, actually, I'm all right, I can crack on. So I think, yeah, it just depends when you actually get onto that run leg. But I mean, everyone knows how good Jess Learmont is, and if I was in this chase group, I wouldn't want to give her 32 seconds. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, that's what she's got.
Well, she's only got a lap and a bit to try and hold on to it. And she'll know exactly how far ahead she is now. She'll, in her head, just be sizing up the whole scenario ahead. One more lap on the bike and then a 10K run.
Just got a shot of Ayueda coming up the climb.
She even manages to smile when she's going uphill on a bike. It's incredible.
She is such a smiley person. Brightens everyone's day. Yeah, I meant like leading into Tokyo, I bet for Ayueda, I think it's just all about just getting some races under the belt, getting that race fitness back, and just the best race prep you possibly can for that, the biggest race she'll have, as it'll be a home Olympics.
And we've seen her perform well on home soil before in Yokohama several times.
Yes.
Jess Learmont performs pretty well everywhere.
I guess like most athletes, Jess Learmonth has had a pretty rocky training situation in the UK, no access to pools, and not really open water for so long. You know, 15 weeks outside of not being able to swim, like having to ride indoors, run indoors. Like, it's been pretty difficult for a lot of athletes, and Jess is certainly one of them that's had to deal with these challenges. So considering all of that, I think she's racing pretty well.
Oh, absolutely. And not far away now from completing her penultimate lap.
She's just choosing to try and stay off the cobbles because, like I said in the men's race, the vibrations of the cobbles after 6 laps, it's just pins and needles through the fingers.
Well, I guess that's the advantage that you have when you're riding solo like that.
Yeah.
You can take whatever line you want without having to worry about where anyone else is. And of course, these chasers in behind don't have that luxury when they're in a group of 6 or 7. So round she comes. Really hasn't put a foot wrong in this race so far, Jess Learmonth. And she came down on a car journey with her partner and Georgia Taylor-Bраун, and she'll take the bell here with around about a half-minute advantage.
I actually think she's taking these corners a little bit quicker on her own. Maybe just like she can actually carry the speed a little bit more. I think she prefers riding solo, that's for sure. And actually might have put a bit of time maybe into these girls.
Well, hopefully we'll find out shortly. And if you look at it, you know, she does have a 30-second lead over 10,000 metres, 4 laps. There we go. So still 30 seconds, there or thereabouts.
Yeah, Jess really picked up that bike lap. So she completed that bike lap in 8:20, and Flora just came through in 8:39. So she's holding it.
So if you do the maths, and here's how we look at it. So say 30 seconds for ease of arithmetic's sake, 4 laps, so 7.5 seconds a lap. Certainly not beyond the likes of Taylor-Bраун, Duffy, potentially Lindemann, Kingham. But you know, Jess is as we said, we have said many times, a hugely improved runner. You mentioned that run she had in Lausanne, and that's not the only one. There've been several. So absolutely no guarantee that anyone's going to be able to catch her, especially now that Learmonth is out on her final lap on the bike.
Shot there of the bike with the disc brakes, which would have been very handy if it was raining. It just helps with the braking a little bit more in the wet, but today not particularly necessary.
Yeah, very warm out there in the high 20s centigrade, 80 on Fahrenheit. But I think you're right. I think she looks like she is cornering quicker, and you know, if she can get even 4 or 5 seconds on this final lap. That's what normally happens when it's a breakaway, normally on the last lap, but we'll see.
Okay.
7 chasers in behind. You just wonder, how is Duffy's fitness? How is Lindemann's fitness? Georgia Taylor-Bраун, we know she's pretty fit, or certainly she looked it last weekend. I think even more so than the individual race was impressive enough, but then in the relay she just left Taylor Spivey for dead on the run. It was only a mile or so, and Spivey was kind of out of sight of Spivey at the end of it.
Yeah, I guess it's just that question again, like I brought up in the men's race. It's actually just did having that lockdown time actually allow athletes to develop and work on those sort of little bits in training that they're wanting to work on without having races kind of getting in the way a little bit, maybe? So for some athletes, I think it's actually been a bit of a positive that they've had time just to develop and to just head down and train. For others, maybe actually racing's just they've missed it psychologically, and we talk about that race fitness quite a bit as well. So yeah, I think it's a question I'd love to ask these athletes, whether they've found it being a hindrance or a positive.
I wonder if Katie finishes on the podium, I wonder if Tommy will have the courage to ask his wife what happened when she suddenly went backwards from that leading group with Jess. Maybe. Absolutely nothing bothering Jess Learmonth at the moment. Controlled, really smooth, and so far, without wishing to put the mockers on it, concentration has been unwavering. But as we've said before, we saw the drama that happened right at the end of the men's bike leg earlier. Well, there's no one's wheel for her to clip, so that's not an issue, but she's just got to make sure she's concentrated throughout.
So on this last technical descent, this is where Learmonth will just be thinking, need to recover, need to get ready for this 10K run, making sure she's had enough fluid, make sure she's had that last gel as well that we saw on her bike, because this is going to be a pretty tough 10K for these girls now.
Oh, no sign of easing up at all. Full throttle and that particular part of the course. A little bit of liquid on board. Best to do it now rather than in the tunnel after what happened earlier.
For sure.
Well, she looked back there, but I mean, there's nothing to see. She's got a clear advantage, clear daylight for Jess Learmonth. I love it when she gets on the podium because her interviews are worth the price of admission on their own. Here's where the men came to grief in this tunnel. It's like 1,000 meters from T2.
Yeah, I'm sure Jess is aware of to avoid that pothole that took DeVay off and Kimji, the Japanese athlete. So yeah, through the tunnel and into the last kilometre now on the bike.
No mistakes. She'll start to get out of the shoes momentarily. Make sure that she gets off that bike before the dismount line. Doesn't want to incur any stupid penalties at this point, so that really would put a dampener on it. But you'd say she's experienced enough now to not make that error.
Avoiding the cobbles where she can.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't flirt with those legs of those barriers. There's Lindemann at the front of that chase group.
There's some pretty big names in that chase group there leading on to this run. I think the first 2.5K we're going to have an idea of how everyone's feeling off this bike, because like we've said, it's a challenging bike, and yeah, I think if people go off pretty quick on the run, that means that they're very confident in how quick they can run over 10K.
Well, we saw Learmonth have issues in T1. Let's see if she can execute a cleaner version in T2. Because now it will have a big effect if she has problems. Make sure you get off before the line, that's the first thing. Here she comes. No problems there. So she's got to go all the way up transition. Bike's a number 3 stand. But she's got the freedom of T2 here. And this is where it's more haste, less speed. Just keep controlled, off with the helmet, get that bike rack, that's fine. A little tardy with the first shoe.
Yep.
She didn't probably have to necessarily do that with the bike.
No, but I'm sure she's just trying to double check.
Cover all bases,
exactly, yeah.
But she's off and away on the run, Jess Lermont. Maybe she had a hope for a slightly smoother transition, but there's daylight between her and the rest. Is there enough? That's the question. There's Taylor-Brown, who will definitely be a big threat. Lindemann also. Laura Lindemann, excellent transition. Taylor-Brown's away, Duffy's away. And Maya Kingma as well. And Кейти Зафирес just in behind, with Lopez and with Arnold just behind her. Well, these were the 3 plus Maya Kingma we were talking about on the run. The 3 in that chasing group. 17 seconds is the lead, and I think she cost herself a few seconds in T2 there for sure.
Yeah, I think obviously those girls that have gone off pretty hard at the start, they're confident. Like you can just see Flora pushing the pace on there with Georgia Teylor-Braun, and then a little gap opening up with Laura Lindemann and Maya Kingma forming a little group there as well. I think the hills are probably going to start to prove it's just stamina on this course and strength. It's such a hilly course, and especially after such a tough bike course, legs start cramping, you know, losing form, all that sort of thing happens. And I mean, at the moment, these two look very relaxed. But yeah, they're just making their way to that first climb on the run.
So now with just a 17-second deficit, it changes the equation completely. I mean, it's basically 4 or 5 seconds a lap. It would have them on terms with Jess. I mean, very easy to say it, not anywhere near as easy to do it. But judging on how Taylor-Brown ran last weekend and what we've seen from Flora in the past, and she's on that hopefully getting fitter and fitter type curve. It's going to be difficult though, because there's not much more racing between now and the end of the year. So then you have to gear your training, and it's obviously in these times not that easy, and see what the schedule is for next year, because everything obviously is so uncertain at the moment. It's hard to plan.
Yeah, it is. I mean, at the moment, I guess it's just train when you can. So if you know, your pools are open, you can ride outside, take that advantage and do what you can. But yeah, you're right, it's so difficult to plan races at the moment, and every single athlete is at different stages in their fitness. Like, you know, we just saw Katie there starting on the run, and that didn't look like the usual Katie we're used to, who's a pretty confident front runner. So I think maybe it's just the time in this pandemic, it's just so different for each athlete, and the preparation for these races, because we didn't even really know if these races would even go ahead. So it's been a bit of a bonus that they've actually happened.
No, absolutely, for sure. But you just wonder with Katie, you know, whether she was struggling a bit on the bike, whether it was getting to her legs, and now she's kind of suffering again. There she is, just ahead of Arnold. There's Lottie Miller. That isn't Lucy and I, by the way. I think you'd probably guess that.
I hope so.
So an hour and a half in, and Learmont's ahead, but she has some stellar names hot on her heels. Might be grateful of those water stations. It's very, very warm out there.
Jess is still holding on to that lead, maybe about 9-10 seconds now. But I think because this is, like we've said, that it's a strong run course, I think this will suit Jess. But she's done so much. She has done so much work on that bike on her own, and obviously we saw her in the swim just absolutely smash it from the gun. So this has been like a non-drafting race for Jess at Karlovy Vary.
Yeah, well, you can see Duffy and Taylor-Brown starting to look very, very threatening in behind the leader here.
Lopez just taking that corner and up into the second climb. Maya Kingma following.
Arnold having a great race. There's Lindemann and Katie a little way back.
I think Katie's actually just started a little bit more conservatively, and she's slowly building her pace, because coming out of T2 they kind of gap Katie quite quickly, but then she seems to have settled down into a bit more of a suitable pace, and that you can see she's running with Laura Lindemann now.
Well, even in the last few minutes, Duffy's got closer, and it looks as though Duffy may have opened up a bit of a gap on Taylor-Brown. Hard to see. I don't think they're running shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. Yeah, Duffy's definitely got a gap on GTB. Well, this is the Flora Dafffi of old. Usually would see her in the lead group on the bike, but she's going to get ahead of Jess Liermont on the first lap. And having already gapped Taylor-Brown, you've got to say she's looking big favourite from here.
Yeah, Flora looking super relaxed right now, and I mean, this 10K run might suit her more than the Hamburg 5K, because we've had a pretty challenging bike course, a tough, fast swim from Jess leading it out, and then yeah, like Flora's just taking this out at her own pace, but a quick one.
Well, as I said, I think that 5K in Hamburg just sharpened her up a little bit. There's nothing can replace the experience of competitive racing. All the training you can do, never going to be the same. And you know, we're only 8 days on from that race. She didn't have the Sunday relay, which Liermont and Taylor-Brown had.
That's true. Yeah, she has one more day recovery than the two British girls. It might have made all the difference.
Well, she's showing Liermont a clean pair of heels at the moment. These are the chasers, and you think Taylor-Brown and Liermont just have to keep their concentration if they want to stay on the podium, with the likes of Lindemann, Kingma there, Arnold's having a fantastic race for Brazil, and Lopez in behind her.
Yeah, so Arnold just tucked in behind Maya Kingma. Like we discussed earlier on, like Maya's had such a good race in Hamburg, and then also on some virtual races at the start of the year, and she's looking super confident on this first lap on the run.
Just hearing that Anna Godoy is another casualty, so she's out the race. I mean, this is like kind of turning the clock back a couple of years, watching Flora in this kind of mood, where she was pretty much unstoppable. And actually, towards the end of Gwen Jorgensen's kind of reign, I thought there were signs that, you know, Flora was getting to the state where she could genuinely challenge her. She beat her in that grand final in Cozumel, and beat her to the world title as well that year, albeit it was Olympic year and Gwen had won the gold. So, you know, you can argue about priorities, but still. And then after that, Flora just basically reigned supreme.
Yeah, I think, like, you know, Flora's, like we talked about with Кейти Зафирес, like being a triple threat. Flora's very much like that as well. She used to swim, bike, run, so solid, and we're watching right now how good she is at putting all those three disciplines together. And it looks like she's actually picking the pace up on this second lap of the run.
So Taylor-Brown is now on the shoulder of her British teammate, Jess Lermont. You'd expect her to go past, although Lermont trying to hang tough in behind Maya Kingma. Lindemann and Zafarez a little further back. It must be, at the moment, a fantastic feeling for Flora. It would be even more fantastic if she wins the race, but at the moment she's put herself in great shape to do that. Just because of all the injuries she's had. She was out for a long time. Then she had that other sort of freak injury, breaking a bone in her hand during the lockdown.
Yeah, I think Flora's had a lot of uncertainty in the last 2 years, and actually, like with the Turkey race, with how it went, you know, she finished third, but then actually officially winning the race as Jess and Georgia got DQ'd for that finish. So, you know, I think Turkey was just such a good comeback race for her. And then even Lausanne, you know, again, another really solid performance. And I think 2020, she would have been back to her old self if it wasn't for certain circumstances around the world right now.
Yeah. I just think, you know, in the sense that she almost had to prove it to herself again. That fitness-wise, yeah, it's still there. That total solidity, the bike ability. We saw she nearly came to grief on the bike earlier when she lost her concentration. The run skills, and just to get over the win. And yes, she was officially the winner in the test event, but as you explained, it wasn't quite as straightforward as that. And I think this kind of a victory, if she does win here, will really be a huge confidence booster to her, to think that she can get back to somewhere close to where she was before all the injuries.
Sure. And maybe that stint in Stellenbosch, she's been in Stellenbosch for like nearly over a year, and I think maybe that's worked out really well, because it's just not had to travel. There's been no races, so she could just get a good consistent block in. And I know we spoke about breaking a fifth metatarsal, and I mean, that was not ideal, but just having the opportunity to sort of knuckle down and just train, it's obviously really paying dividends right now to how she's performing in this race. I have to admit, Jess Lermont is looking a lot better on this second lap. I think on the first lap, after doing 40k pretty much either with Кейти Зафирес or solo for that second half, is taking quite a bit out of her, and maybe just needed that first lap just to get into a bit of a rhythm.
Yeah, they're racing together at the moment, Lermont and Georgia Teylor-Bраун. The kind of closed season, as it's going to be in a few weeks' time, Lucy, is that different in a pre-Olympic year to a non-pre-Olympic year, or not, or is it pretty much the same what you would do? Because some of them wouldn't do a lot.
Yeah, I see what you mean, like with races. Again, it's down to the athletes. Some athletes like to keep racing and have that sort of experience and race fitness that we keep talking about.
Yeah. And
then some just like to go away, train, and kind of like keep themselves to themselves, and then come out for that one day, that one race, and they have that. That's the confidence. I think it's different for each athlete, and it's all about just having confidence. So preparation and season races, it all depends on which kind of athlete you are, I guess.
Two Brits side by side. They look to have a decent advantage on those chasing them. Obviously looking at a podium for those two. Might be a battle for silver and bronze if Duffy holds on, and she's looking pretty strong at the moment.
see Maya Kingma that's just come into shot, and she's making her way up that second climb on the run. She's looking really relaxed, actually, Kingma. I can't reiterate how much she's impressed me this year. She's made so many leaps in training, and obviously in races too. And it's definitely becoming evident in this race. It's paying off.
Just if you are maybe new to the sport, and if you're not, you can kind of excuse this 10-second stat, but if you are new to it, just to try and emphasize the supremacy that Flora Dafffi had. When she won the title in 2017, she raced in 7 WTS events, won 6 of them, and then had an absolute shocker in Montreal and finished second. So, you know, that is a measure, and those are the kind of stats that Gwen Jorgensen would put up when she was at the peak of her powers. And it is kind of a cyclical thing. You go back to Emma Snowsill, you go all the way back to Emma Carney, but I mean in more recent years, you know, Emma Snowsill, Nicola Spirig, Gwen Jorgensen, Flora Dafffi, and then you've kind of got Zafiris, Taylor-Brown, Lермонт sort of snapping at the heels. But Даффи in this kind of form, and we were talking about, you know, how tough it is to pick a winner in Tokyo, but Даффи in this kind of form, tough to beat.
Yeah, she's so strong over all 3 disciplines, and we're kind of in that era now where you have to be pretty strong at all 3. Like, you know, likes of, I don't remember the generation of Helen Jenkins and like Sarah True, like they were just such good swim bike runners.
You're young, aren't you?
And I mean, they're just such good all-round athletes, and that kind of set the tone for these guys that came through. So like Georgia Taylor-Bраун and Jess Lермонт and Кейти Зафирес. Yeah, and it's really good to see that they're strong at all 3 disciplines.
So Taylor-Bраун has got ahead of Lермонт now, and Lерmонт has to really dig deep and try and see if she can hold on for the bronze medal. Даффи still with a very healthy lead, and Taylor-Bраун now a clear second. Yeah, I mean, and also we kind of went through that list of names, and there are several athletes that we should probably mention, none of whom have been, or one of whom I'm thinking of, hasn't been a world champion, hasn't been an Olympic champion, but has been unbelievably consistent over a long period of time, and that's Andrea Hewitt.
Yes, yeah. We can't forget Andrea Hewitt from New Zealand. Yeah, so talented, got so much experience and tactically sound as well. Yeah, an athlete that was on the circuit for a long time.
Racing with Helen Jenkins, racing with the ones we mentioned, and still, you know, may well be in the Olympics. We don't know. Obviously, there's issues with New Zealand at the moment.
Yeah, there's that crossover definitely with that sort of generation. But yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning as well, like, because we've not seen how the Aussies and the Kiwis and Canadians are racing right now.
Ashley Gentle will be one that you would think of as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Australia.
Yeah.
Grand final winner on Gold Coast a few years ago. So Даффи out on her 3rd lap with Taylor-Bраун now her nearest pursuer.
She's still looking very relaxed. She's so efficient when she runs. She doesn't look like she's trying, and I think that's the best kind of runner, when they don't look like, you know, when they're effortless.
I think almost any sport that's the case, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Make it look so easy.
Yeah. You know, you're onto a winner.
Her father, Darryl, represented England in the, Britain rather, in the 800 metres, and her mum swam at national level. So I guess you could say, kind of, it's a pretty good bloodline that for a triathlete, isn't it?
Yeah, anyone that knows GTV as well, from a young age, you know that she's got that talent and the capability of being one of the best in the world, and she proved that last weekend in Hamburg. Yeah,
she was second in the World Juniors way back 2013, I think it was, and that promise is now really coming to fruition. Fantastic win last weekend. Looks pretty solid in 2nd place here behind Даффи, with probably about 4,500 metres to go now. There's our leader, though. I mean, she was, and she said as much to me after Hamburg, she was pretty pleased with that second. Pretty pleased. You know, considering the injury that she's had, wasn't her best distance. But it's like the Flora Dafffi of old at the moment.
I actually think she's looking better now than she did on the first lap. She's just looking like she's into her rhythm. She's got her breathing under control. Yeah, she's looking super strong.
I mean, it was impressive, wasn't it? The way that, you know, Taylor-Bраун couldn't keep with her, and then she got to Liermont inside the first lap. Brazilians running well today, including Jennifer Arnold, as we mentioned earlier. She's a talented woman, and she won the National Duathlon Championships last year. The following month she won the National Sprint Championships, then she won the National Aquathon Championships. And this is a really good performance from her today.
Yeah, and she was in that second chase pack that was chasing Jess Liermont with Lopez, her fellow teammate. And yeah, she's had a pretty good race in Hamburg. She finished 15th there. And 12th back in Lausanne World Champs. So we know that she goes well on a tough and challenging course, and it's very evident today. She's running inside the top 10 for this World Cup.
Good to see this race being well supported. I think it's not just the athletes that have missed competing. I think everyone, whatever sport it is, just wants to see it being played again or being raced again or whatever it is.
Well, it just brings back a little bit of normality as well. We can escape a little bit when you watch your favourite sport or just someone competing and doing really well. It just, yeah, it brings back a little bit of joy, doesn't it?
It's amazing how much you kind of take it for granted, sport in general.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you reappreciate almost the joy of someone running or someone kicking a ball or whatever it is.
For sure, yeah.
So Flora probably about halfway through her penultimate lap and still looking extremely strong, extremely controlled.
Very controlled down that hill as well. Because that's the worst thing, I think. It's running down a descent and you're trying to control and make sure you don't lose form. And Flora does that effortlessly. I mean, this is Flora running uphill, and it doesn't look like she's running uphill.
It certainly doesn't. It really is a throwback to when Duffy was at the peak of her powers a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. At the moment, Taylor-Bраун looks booked for second, just lapping the Mexican. She's got great cadence, Flora. It just almost like she kisses the surface of the road.
And that's half the battle, I think, on a 10k run off the bike.
Yeah.
Your legs feel like jelly, but if you can keep your cadence up and hold your form, you know, that is half the battle. And you know, like Flora right now is looking, we were just saying about looking effortless, and she really does look like that.
Curious if Tommy's going to ask her about that bike incident. Seems a long time ago now, but I mean, it just shows you it all could have been so different.
Yeah,
and had she not been able to control the bike, and it was a touch and go situation,
yeah,
would have been a totally different story. Taylor-Bраун in second place, clear second place. Wonder whether Jess Liermont able to hold on for third. We'll get a look back there momentarily.
Jess is just making her way down that second hill on the run course. And in the distance, you can see Maya Kingma, and she does look like she's running strong, so potentially could catch Jess on this last lap and a half. But Jess is looking strong and looking like she's got good turnover, so maybe she could hang on. So one of Maya Kingma's best results must have been 6th in Hamburg last week. It was a super impressive performance. I think she was definitely one of the standout athletes for me, alongside Laura Lindemann finishing 3rd. She's really come on leaps and bounds in this sort of last year.
Kingma looking for a first World Cup podium. Taylor-Bраун just looks like she's kind of running within herself a bit now. I mean, she knows that she's not going to catch Flora. Just has to make sure that she consolidates that silver medal position. There's Даффи about to lap the Slovak runner. Lermont just starting to look a little weary, but she is really tough.
She's gutsy. Like, this has been a tough course, and she's pretty much set the tone from the gun. She went out hard in the swim, made the girls chase her on the bike, held a little bit of a lead, and then, like I keep reiterating, this run course is super tough. So for her to hold on to 3rd, or if she's going to have a battle with Kingma for 4th, like, you know, she's racing well and she's in good nick.
So Даффи will take the bell with 2,500 meters to run. And, you know, to be honest, from her point of view, it really doesn't matter if it's a WTS race, a World Cup, whatever it is. It's just that satisfaction and that self-belief she's going to get from getting back on the top step of the podium, and especially, you know, with a strong field like there's been today. There's been, you know, it's not an easy race. It's no gimme, this race. Yeah,
I think a lot of these athletes, they just want to race. Whether it be a World Series, a World Cup, a European Cup, it could have been whatever. They just, if it's a chance, a shot to do what they love, and it's, you know, it's kind of like their livelihood. Yeah, I think it's just been a really good opportunity to display where everyone's at as well. So it gives athletes the opportunity to go back and work on little things leading into Tokyo. Gives you an idea if you need to work on some run speed, you know, your swim speed maybe on the 2nd lap, or your bike handling skills, all that sort of thing. It just gives you a bit of awareness of where you are internationally.
Kingma there, looks like she's going to get past Jess Lermont. She's had a couple of excellent results on the World Triathlon Series. 6th last week in Hamburg, 7th in Leeds last year. And the podium is beckoning for the Dutch girl here. And it has been coming. This is no surprise.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a natural progression from, like, well, I remember racing with Maya, and she's always had that potential, and obviously has the talent, and she's been working on a little bit of a running. She's riding really well. Look, she's just picked up the pace and gone past Jess, like she's just sprinted past her. So yeah, very impressive. Again, could have been a 2020 standout, or is the 2020 standout athlete, I think, in this race, because her performance here and last weekend as well, it's super impressive.
Well, she's just got to hold it together for probably what's the equivalent of about 5 laps of an athletics track to secure that podium. Got to feel a little bit of sympathy for Lermont after leading by a country mile out the water and then riding solo for the last 10 Ks on the bike. Looks like she's going to finish off the podium.
Yeah, I meant still 4th place in this World Cup especially is so impressive, and she just races so gutsy, and yeah, I think 4th place here is not to be sniffed at all. Super gutsy run.
Kingham has got right away now from Jess Learmonth. Can't even see Learmonth behind her, just about coming into focus there. She knows that that first podium is there for the taking. Don't imagine she would get to Taylor Brown. Taylor Brown doesn't look like we'll get to Flora Daffy, who came out with a statement of intent on the run inside the first lap. Came out of T2 with Taylor Brown, dropped her early, then got to Learmonth before the end of that first lap, erasing a near 20-second deficit. And she's been up front and going away ever since. But this is still going to be a breakthrough race for Kingham.
Like this last lap for Kingham looks like she's really picked the pacer, and she's actually driving. Like, you can see she's really focusing on getting away from Jess Learmonth, maybe just trying to get as much time up these hills as she can leading into the finish line. But yeah, she's not fading away. Like, you know, usually if you're starting to get a little bit fatigued towards the end of a 10k run, she actually looks like she's getting stronger.
Well, Duffy looks a near certainty unless something absolutely dramatic occurs. You never count your chickens in this sport, but she really has kind of rolled back time a little bit today. Looked for a while as though Learmonth and Zafiris might have the race between them. That all changed when Zafiris dropped back, couldn't go with Learmonth. Taylor Brown comfortable enough at the moment in second behind Duffy. Try and get an idea of how far ahead she is of Maya Kinghma. But Duffy is way clear. And yes, she won that test event, although she wasn't first over the line.
Yeah.
But, you know, officially, she was credited with first place. But in terms of being first across the line, you've got to go back to Yokohama in 2018. So we're talking best part of 2.5 years.
Yeah, wow.
And in triathlon, you know, terms, that's quite a while.
It is. This will mean a lot to her. You know, finishing first in Karlovy Vary with this caliber of athletes that are competing. And like you said, in Turkey, officially got the win, but unofficially didn't cross the line first. So I think this will mean a lot to Flora.
Yeah, as I said before, I think just in terms of her own self-belief, and now she knows, and you know, for all we know, she may not be 100% fit. I mean, who's to say any of them are, to be fair? But you know, if this is what she can do off the back of the horrendous injuries that she's had, then you probably would say, well, you definitely would have said in the middle of 2017, right, who's your, or 2018, start 2018, who's your favourite for Tokyo? Would have just said Flora Даффи straight away, no hesitation.
Yeah.
And now, as you said earlier, things have changed, circumstances change. However, in this kind of form, she would be one of the names that you would certainly put in pencil, and pretty heavy pencil at that.
Definitely. I mean, when we talk about Turkey race course, obviously it's slightly different to something like Karlovy Vary or Lausanne, which is the bike course is flat and technical rather than it being hilly, and that definitely changes things a little bit. And also with the humidity and the air temperature being as hot as it is in Japan, that is a big part to play. But I actually think Flora races really well in the heat. Like, it's 27 degrees here, isn't it?
Well, she'd hardly had much racing before she came into that test event, and even if you discount what happened, it's still a decent race to finish third, or pass the line third.
Yeah.
Georgia Teylor-Brownová, která se týdnem před Karlovými Vary v Hamburgu stala mistryní světa, ale bylo to na sprinterských tratích. Daffyová je lepší vytrvalkyně a to se tady na těžké karlovarské trati jednoznačně projevilo.
Ano, ta trať je nesmírně těžká a dnešní tempo bylo doslova drtící, takže...
So not far to go now as we see Georgia Taylor-Brown come into shot. And despite the excellence of Maya Kingma's run, I don't think she's going to get to GTB in terms of the silver medal. And Taylor Brown, for her own part, some way behind this woman. It's almost like a throwback to 2 or 3 years ago, where Duffy was completely dominating the women's side of triathlon. And today, well, it's been a performance right up there with some of those we've seen before. She's proved it to herself, and she's proved it to everybody else in the field as well. There's the clenched fist. This will mean an awful lot to the Bermudian as Duffy comes to cross the line. First across the line for the first time in 2.5 years. She wins the Karlovy World Cup. And we'll have to look back and just check that it's Georgia Taylor-Brown still in second place. Almost certain it will be, even though Maya Kingma was closing with a really stellar run. And look at the margin of victory. Flora really has run the legs off her opponents today. Started on that first lap and she's just gone further and further away, but it will be Georgia Taylor-Brown. Well, it's not been a bad 8 days' work, has it really? She took gold at the World Champs in Hamburg. Then she helped the British team to a bronze medal in the mixed team relay. And now she's going to follow Duffy across the line and claim the silver medal here, but a long way back.
Yeah, I think Flora has put a bit of time into all girls, but especially like G coming in second. But yeah, like you said, G's had such a good 8 days, especially when everything's been a little bit up in the air, whether racing was going to take place or not. So not too shabby towards the end of the year for Georgia Taylor-Brown with a first and now a second Karlovy Vary behind Flora Daffy.
Yeah, she'll be really proud of this. Yet another medal, yet another podium, and yet another statement from the 26-year-old Brit. A little wave to an appreciative crowd as Taylor-Brown crosses the finishing line. Well, we'll do shortly. Confirming second place today, and what a run behind her from Maya Kingma.
And that smile.
It says it all. She's going to get on a podium for the first time in a World Cup race. She's improving, and she is absolutely, she can't believe it herself. Great display from Kingma. She's going to get the bronze.
Oh, I'm so happy for Maya Kingma taking third. That is such a gutsy performance, and like you said, I don't think she can believe it. So yeah, those three girls, what a great podium. And Jess Learmont coming in fourth. I mean, all that work that she did over the last 2 hours, it's incredible.
She's still making sure no one's going to get her and get her for fourth, but they're not. She will finish in fourth place, among the most courageous fourth places ever, probably. And look at this from Jennifer Arnold.
Yeah.
This is a phenomenal display. No wonder she's giving it the double fist pump, because the Brazilian, a career best, she's going to finish fifth in a race of this quality. That is superb.
Yeah, it not just being a World Cup, but like you said, Trev, the calibre of this World Cup is insane, and she's just finished fifth. That is career-defining.
Laura Lindemann.
Oh, maybe in a bit of a sprint here.
Trying to hold on for sixth. And this is not easy after nearly 2 hours and 10 minutes, uphill and down dale. But Lindemann will hold on and finish in sixth place. It has been a really tough contest today. Casillas finishing in seventh, Steinhauser a top 10 for her. And Baptista from Brazil, a very creditable performer. So 2 Brazilians in the top 10.
Oh, and Lisa Turch had a superb run. She's run from the third pack. So yeah, really good run from Lisa.
And a slightly weary-looking Кейти Зафирес.
Yeah, I meant Katie, again, like she's had some really good points in this race, where we've seen like Katie at her best, and then just now and again, just a little bit fatigued maybe, a little bit rusty on certain things, but you know, I'm sure she'll be back.
Huge cheer for Kurnikova, who's milking the applause. The Czechs love one of their own. Players finishing home runner. Ackland from the States.
That's a good result.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is a good run. Valerie Barthelmy of Belgium. Just over 2 hours and 10. But you can see how strung out they are. I mean, this course, there'll be athletes finishing 3, 4, 5 minutes after the winner's gone over the line. Rachel Klammer. I think we can go down now and we can get a word with a no doubt delighted winner, because Flora Dafffi is with Tommy Zafiris.
In a fully stacked field, Flora Daffy, you came up on top. Tell us about the race.
Thanks. Wow, it was so hard, man. That was such a shock to the system. I mean, first Olympic distance of the year, and on such a challenging course with, as you said, a stacked field. I mean, the swim was just on. Jess is unbelievable, unbelievably strong on the bike. I mean, yeah, I was just trying to recover from the swim for most of the bike, honestly, which is hard to do on this type of course. But we worked pretty well together on the bike, and I knew it was just going to come down to a hard run, so just tried to get as much nutrition in as possible on the bike and ride strong but not overextend myself, and the run just felt like survival. But I'm just so thrilled to win a race. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but it's been a long time that since I won a race at this level, and it's just a huge confidence boost, and yeah, just something I feel like I personally really needed, and yeah, just fantastic to get out there and race with all the girls again.
It was awesome to see you dominate. Congratulations, Flora.
Thank you, Tommy.
Interesting, very interesting what she said there. And we were kind of inferring it, weren't we, how much that means to her winning that race. It's been a while.
Yeah, you're right. A bit of confidence from racing this Karlovy Vary race with the calibre of athletes that raced it as well. I'm just super chuffed because I think she's had a pretty rocky couple of years. Yeah, good to see Flora Daffy back on top.
And it wasn't cheesy at all, what she was saying. I think we can go down and get a word with Georgia Taylor-Brown. She's with Tommy.
Second place, Georgia. Fantastic race. At one point on the run, you ran past me and said, "I'm done," but you still had plenty of energy. Walk us through the race.
No, I didn't have much energy. I think we were lucky that we had quite a big gap to the chasers. The run really killed me. To be honest, the first lap of the swim, I wanted to give up. I wasn't feeling good today, but I stuck in there. I came back to life a bit on the bike, and I think we worked pretty well. Jess was an absolute animal on the bike. She pulled out more time, even though we had a group chasing. And then on the run, I just knew it wasn't going to be my day today. Set off, and I didn't feel as comfortable as last week, but I stuck in there to the end.
Yeah, fantastic job, Georgia. Second place, still amazing. Podium, awesome job. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Well, she said actually last week that she wasn't too confident. She said she had some lung burn. This week she said she almost gave up. I mean, you'd hate to see what she's capable of when she's completely fit and firing.
If that's her bad day, coming second to Flora Daffy, that's a pretty good day. Yeah, she's always been a really modest athlete, and I think that's just a bit of GTV's personality coming out there. But yeah, she's just super good effort from her.
All right, well, I'll tell you who's going to be, even with a mask on, smiling broadly. Maya Kingma, first ever podium at this level. She's down with Tommy.
Maya Kingma, first World Cup podium, stacked field, probably the most stacked field of any World Cup. Tell us about your feelings and tell us how the race went.
I can't believe it, but I'm incredibly happy. The race went not good. The swim was a big fight, and I was all the way back. I have to keep fighting, I did apparently. I came on the bike with Georgia Teylor-Bраун, and
I thought we just have to keep pushing. We couldn't see them anymore, but we thought we have to keep pushing. And then in the city center, I think we worked with Flora and Tratya, and well, I felt pretty strong. So I just thought, okay, I have to keep pushing. For me, it's tough, so for the rest it will be very tough, probably. And with the run, I thought I'm gonna try it at top 6, and then I saw like, okay, maybe top 5, maybe top 4. And that's it. Yeah, I'm really happy.
At what point did you know that you had a podium?
Only when I only at the finish line, to be honest. Yeah, I saw Jessica and I wasn't really sure if I could like close the gap, and then yeah, I closed and didn't know what to do. And so I thought, okay, maybe just keep pushing, and we will see if I like drop down at 8K, then I drop down, but I tried. So that was what I thought, just keep trying.
All right, congratulations, Maya, fantastic race.
Thank you, thank you.
She is absolutely thrilled with that medal, and it's great to see that.
Yeah, I think like it sounded like Maya Kingma didn't have any expectations coming into the race. However, she is she obviously been training really hard and had a lot of potential, and came away with 3rd place. So it was a good podium.
Well, athletes still finishing, as you can see. Let's check on the top 10 then. Flora Daffy with that win that means so much to her. Taylor-Brown said, yeah, wasn't feeling great, nearly gave up, still finishes 2nd. Kingma's first ever podium, which would be great. Jess Liermont, as I mentioned, one of the bravest 4ths you'll see for a while. And those 2 Brazilians in the top 10, and 2 Germans as well, Lindemann and Tersch.
Yeah, that's a really good performance from the Brazilians. And like you said, Lisa Tersch sneaking into the top 10, which she must have had one of the fastest runs of the day, because she's run from the 3rd pack there.
Yeah, of course, she was in the German relay team, wasn't she, last weekend in Hamburg, along with Laura Lindemann. But that's an excellent top 10 for the German, as it is also for Steinhauser coming in 8th place, and Casillas Garcia also in 7th. So that's the top 10. Trying to think what have we learned today? Well, we've certainly learned on the women's side that Maya Kingma, there's, the improvement is clear, and, I think there's a lot more to come there as well.
Yeah, I agree. Made some massive leaps, obviously, in training this year, and developed as an athlete. Like tactically, just got a little bit more sound. Learnt from her fellow competitors as well. So there's a lot more to come from Maya, and she's still got a little time to prepare for the Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah, still the best part of a year. And once again, I think it's worth saying just, how tough it is and how much organisation it requires to get one of these races on. The International Triathlon Union, the local organising committee, some of the main sponsors, NTT, for instance, the Global Technology Services Company. It's a team effort, it's a combined effort, and you can just tell from listening to the athletes, they are just cock-a-hoop to be racing again. It's bad enough for the average person who works in an office to be kind of cooped up and like not being able to do what they want to do. For an athlete, it's 10 times worse. It must be.
Yeah, sure. I think like this pandemic has been hard on everyone, and it's just like we said, athletes are just happy to be back racing. It gives that normality, that sense of normality for a lot of people, for spectators, for people that are viewing online, and also just athletes that are racing and the coaches, that we all want sport to keep continuing and happening, because it brings that normality and happiness back, I think.
Yeah, so we've had 2 major races now in the space of just over a week. First in Hamburg and now here. And kind of, it's been proved now that you can stage a triathlon, albeit, there's a lot of hard work involved, but you can stage a triathlon in these circumstances, following all the protocols that there are. And of course, they keep changing, which makes it even more difficult.
Yeah.
But, they've done a sterling job. And, the organisers here have been rewarded with, 2 fantastic fields for both the men's and the women's races. I mean, huge names.
Yeah, I think it's really good that athletes have wanted to race, and we've had, like you said, some really big names that have come to this little city in the Czech Republic, Karlovy Vary, and race this course. And I actually think a lot of the athletes will love this setting. A bit like Lausanne. Like Lausanne has been a World Cup race and then went on to be a World Championship race. So I wonder if Karlovy Vary could be maybe, potentially be involved with the World Championship one day.
Yeah, some of the runners still finishing, and obviously the local camera crews focusing on the Czech athletes. But yeah, I mean, a grand final certainly wouldn't be out of place on this course, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think the spectators here as well, they really do appreciate the sport, and they appreciate the athletes giving it 110%. Like, we've seen a lot of spectators out on the course today watching.
And they've been blessed with wonderful weather. That's the first thing, because as you mentioned earlier, if it got wet, this bike course can take a few casualties.
Yeah, it could have been a different story in the wet, that's for sure. But yeah, like you said, Trev, the weather has been fantastic, the turnout fantastic, the performances fantastic. It's been an all-round amazing day here in the Czech Republic.
And I was saying, what have we learned? I mean, you could turn around and say, well, Vincent Luis wins the men's race relatively comfortably. Flora Dafffi wins the women's race very comfortably. Form is temporary, class is permanent.
100% agree with that. Yeah, I think you're right. It just shows you, like, well, Vincent Luis, he's been 2019, 2020 world champ, and Flora Dafffi, previous world champ as well. So it's just the caliber of athletes that they are. Yeah, it's just a testament to the athletes that they are.
And injuries, I mean, on Flora particularly, injuries are they are part of a sportsman or sportswoman's life. It's just a hazard of the occupation, basically. But she has come back today. I mean, the first lap was such a storming statement, I thought. Got past George Taylor-Brown, who, okay, said she wasn't fully, feeling 100%, and I'm sure that's right. But to breeze past Georgia and then get to Jess, maybe, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 metres in, and then just to go further away for the rest of the race.
Yeah, it's nuts. I think coming back from injury, like I've said before, that it's inevitable that athletes do get injured and sick at some parts in their career. But the biggest challenge is athletes being able to come back from that illness or injury and be as strong, if not stronger, than they were. And Flora Dafffi has proven that.
Well, still some athletes are finishing. It's been a long day for all the organisers here. Been up since the early hours. All the things that you don't think of that they have to do in terms of erecting all those barriers and setting the course up. Involves closing roads, of course, changing traffic signals. Shriskova's going to get a hearty round of applause for those that have stayed behind here. Appreciate her effort in finishing. Which she has now done. 2 minutes 23, 2 hours 23 rather, for the Czech runner.
You can see what the course has done to these girls and these ladies. Like, it's just taken it out of them. It's just such a tough, brutal course, and in these really hot conditions as well, it just makes it that little bit harder.